If you run anything that touches a warehouse, container, a train, a truck, or even a customer order, the next 12 months are going to be some of the most chaotic times of your career. We are in for some fun. Tariffs have already been rewriting trade lanes overnight. AI is changing the game rapidly. Most operators are going to be forced to adapt to ongoing changes in technology. In this AI-first world, it's here to stay. I run Vector. We work in some of the leading yards and warehouses for industry giants in retail, manufacturing, and third-party logistics in North America. So I get to see at the ground level, well before mainstream media picks it up, what life is like and what it's going to become. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 trends that are going to redefine logistics in 2026 and beyond. The actual shifts that are going to decide whether your operation comes out leaner and meaner next year, or if you were caught off guard because you didn't pay attention. Let's get right into it. Consumers know of supply chain for one reason and one reason only: chaos. Whether it's the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz, whether it's the tariff crisis that's going on right now, consumers know supply chain for one reason, and that's because stuff doesn't show up on time or prices are going up astronomically. Tariffs, they used to be a procurement problem, but now they're a logistics problem. How do I get my product from point A to B by avoiding certain markets? Not only is it tariffs that are causing me to change my logistics network, but fuel, my gosh, diesel prices are over $8 a gallon in certain markets in the US right now. Well, that has downstream effects on my customs broker, my freight providers, my rail providers, and it's all to deliver the goods that you know and love and trust, and you expect to be on shelf at a fair price. So to the shipper, the manufacturer, or the retailer, supply chain's biggest advantage is about being able to handle these shockwaves. Gone are the days of making an excuse that I didn't know tariffs were coming. You have to be able to flex in and out to keep your customers happy. Did you know that Mexico is now the largest trading partner of the United States? They passed China in 2023, and the gap, it's widening every year, and that's going to continue. Yes, we built our networks on ocean trade and rail networks to be able to handle all this importation of product. But the reality is, instead of really boats and trains, we're now talking about trucks and trains from our southbound neighbor coming into the US. So what does this mean operationally? Well, it means that warehouses near the border on both sides are really, really tight. It means that trucking capacity is hard to find. It means that cost and service vary. So being able to manage your partners and manage the infrastructure is absolutely critical. We used to always define transit days as on average 25 to 30 days from China to West Coast or East Coast US. The big decision was, do you go through the Panama Canal or do you use rail across the country from the West Coast ports? Gone are those days. And yes, they still exist to some degree, but the fact is north and southbound transportation is the hot commodity in 2026, and it's going to be next year too. So we have a $60 billion problem that very few people ever talk about, and that's cargo theft. 2 years ago, when I would ask someone, have they been hit up by cargo theft? The answer was always no. That's changed though in 2026. Yes, crime rings, sophistication, threat attacks happen day in and day out in our logistics communities. But $60 billion in 2024 alone, it's not acceptable. It's not gun heists and hostages like you'd see in the movies. It's all digital theft. So how do you even stop this? Well, it starts with visibility and defining and understanding what the real truth is. All too often, too many people are looking at the wrong metrics. They're not looking at their process. The ELD mandate, or electronic logging device, was a government mandate in 2017 for truck drivers to stop cheating the system on their logbooks. It was ultimately a safety process and policy. Well, what it started was the real-time visibility craze. You had companies like Forkites and MacroPoint and Project 44 and others that really started this craze of saying, look, where is my truck? 5 years ago, it was a competitive edge, but now it's table stakes, and customers can't load without it. They have to know where the truck is at every single step of the way. And if not, you better be cautious. It's well beyond the old game of where's my truck. And if you don't have real-time tracking, the rest is a game of whack-a-mole. It's absolutely critical to have this component as a part of your end-to-end order management. So just because I have real-time data, does it mean I'm set? Well, the answer is no. So let's get into AI and how AI is changing the game. The old rule of forecast is that the forecast is always wrong. Why do companies spend billions and billions of dollars every single year on demand planning, forecasting, supplier visibility? Well, it's because it's how the sausage is made. How do I get the product to my consumer? How do I have product in the nearest market to deliver it in an efficient, timely manner? The old way, though, was human reliant. Planners had to build it in Excel. They would go to their sales team. Sales would always give lofty expectations, right? Because you're in sales. Well, then it would update monthly, and oftentimes they have to get re-updated because it missed so drastically the first week. That whole process was known as S&OP, or sales and operations planning. And so forecasting really isn't different in supply chain. There was a lot of guessing that went on. There was a lot of trust. There was a lot of false assumptions. AI has definitely changed the game in forecasting tools. And even before AI was cool, machine learning algorithms were invested heavily in supply chain forecasting. You had ops research folks that were true PhDs in mathematics come into our ecosystem. They were able to build tune models on highly sophisticated data. They would pull from open source data like Twitter, like weather, like consumer trends to be able to dictate what their forecast should be. But AI, it has allowed it for mass market companies and the long tail of companies that are typically smaller, less resource intensive to get the best of all these opportunities. The latest is that companies that are leveraging AI for forecasting are 20 to 50% more accurate. But what does that mean? Well, it means that their safety stock is less. It means they have more cash flow. They have more finances to invest in the right area. So ultimately, with a healthier balance sheet, companies can invest in more consumer-centric technologies and trends, which is what we want. There's a catch though. Your data has to be clean and it has to be connected in an ecosystem. If you have false assumptions and you have AI-powered tech, you're no better off. In fact, your forecasting models are going to probably put you into uncharted territories. So, clean data, connected ecosystem with a combination of AI, your teams can do magical things. I mentioned that many teams had LLMs or large language models in forecasting well before AI was really all the craze. So what's the difference now? Well, it's not autonomous decision making. It's the fact that a human doesn't have to sit there and babysit it over and over. That self-tuning, that self-decision making can be completely automated. So one of the key trends that you hear in 2026 is the term agentic. It's an agent of sort. It helps ride by your side and do things on your behalf. So what if I have an automated model that now has an agent or multiple agents that are acting as human beings? That is the real power of agentic AI. What I can do in minutes would take humans days, weeks, or months, potentially never to be able to achieve. We're charting territories that we never could have dreamed of even 5 years ago. When I think of my logistics planning days 15 years ago, dashboards were awesome. Just get me the sole source of truth for my dashboards with my warehouse, my trucking companies, and then let's get a meeting together to meet in person to go over the data. Gone are those days. I don't need humans to connect everyone together, right? My carriers already know the same data. They're already getting warnings about poor performance on certain areas that they must correct, otherwise they're going to risk losing the business. This is agentic AI in the field. This almost seems like science fiction. When I think back to my days 20 years ago in logistics, you could have never dreamed of this. We have companies using drones for cycle counting in warehouses. What used to be one of the most tedious jobs where every employee from the company would come in and try and figure out where inventory was hiding in the building, it's all done by drones now. And humans, they're not eliminated from jobs. They're still needed. But those manual tasks, they're completely automated. Safety, much higher. And sophistication is clearly like a science fiction film. So we know software is powering a lot of supply chain decisions today, and it's increased dramatically over the last 2 years, even the last 6 months. But the other part is still necessary. And that's the physical part. You still need physical buildings, physical trucks. Products are not just showing up at your door through a Back to the Future style delivery system. The physical aspect is here to stay. So even though this sounds like a science fiction film, the robots, they're already here and they're here to stay. Warehouse robotics have already crossed the cost effectiveness line. So it's no longer an elite tier of solutions for a select few companies. So whether it's AMRs, AGVs, AS/RS systems, you name it, there are robotics everywhere. Robotics are here and they're here to stay. You may hear of companies like Symbotic or Locus, AutoStore, Gray Orange, Kiva, you name it, even Honeywell. These help humans out significantly. They intersect with technology. They make buildings way more safe. They can operate 24/7. And yes, they may need to be recharged from time to time, but they don't need 9 hours of sleep like a human. For example, a 500,000 square foot warehouse, well, before it may need 200 pickers, but now with robotics and people staying in place, they may only need 80. That's 120 FTE impact just on one building alone. But what about trucks? Well, we know as modern day trucking still requires a driver, or is that really the case? Did you know that the average age of a truck driver per OIDA is 56 years of age? So that's going to change a lot here in the next 10 years as this current generation retires. So not only is age a factor, but even present day, we're 80,000 drivers short. So the supply and demand imbalance, it's real. The shift in 2026 is that autonomous trucking is no longer going to be a concept. You have Aurora running Dallas to Houston commercially. You have Kodiak in the Sun Belt, Gatik Handling running middle mile for major retailers, and many companies looking at corridor automation. Even though autonomous trucks may not do the first pickup at first mile or the last pickup at last mile, if I can handle the long, over-the-road, high-volume corridors, well, now I can use the labor that I'm short to help handle the first mile and last mile deliveries or that final building pickup or delivery. So when you think of the end game, it is not a driverless world. It's similar to a warehouse. How do I automate 80% of my work with robots or software? And how do I leverage 20% for the staff? That critical human decision making. So whether it's navigating construction at a local retailer or navigating multi-stop deliveries at shops, that's ultimately where drivers are going to be focused. The main mass volume, high volume corridors, well, you're going to see truck drivers that don't exist in those trucks anymore. So even with all this automation, the human side of logistics is more strained, not less strained, which is kind of counterintuitive. So why is that? Well, it's because there's always more work to do. There's constant advancements. There's constant changes. How do I stay ahead of my competition? That's all a part where humans absolutely will exist. So I've thrown a lot of trends at you, 8 to be exact. So whether it was tech, lane automation, building automation, trucking automation, well, let's think back to the people, right? We're pretty critical in this. We're the architects of all of this. And the worker is what really makes this unique. Warehouse turnover is still a challenge for a lot of companies. 40 to 50% turnover in most operations around the US. So whether it's forklift workers, dock staff, receiving and shipping clerks, well, human capacity is still needed to run a buttoned up operation. The ones that see winning out, well, they treat the workforce as a logistics scenario, not an HR problem. Better facilities, better processes, better tech, having those individuals contribute and accountable to future success, well, that's how you get employees to stay. And not only that, they're going to be the next wave of talent leading your organization. So what's one of those ways that those people help? Well, imagine a warehouse where drivers only take 15 minutes to pick up your freight. Imagine if a drop trailer only took 2 minutes to grab and leave your property. Imagine a world where your staff doesn't sift through tons and tons of boxes for bill of ladings. What if it was all digital? Those same folks and experts, they're the ones that contribute to your future success. So what drives all of this behavior? What's driving all these trends? It's consumer expectations. Amazon was one of those major players that changed the game. Gone are the days of accepting 3 to 5 or even 7-day transit times for delivery. Now what's the expectation? Well, I expect that if I place an order at 7 a.m. today, that it's at my doorstep by 2 p.m. These expectations at the end, downstream, well, they put so much pressure upstream on suppliers, on manufacturers, on e-commerce companies, on logistics networks. And that's if things go right. But what if they go wrong? Well, as a consumer, I want to be taken care of. Not only do I want to return the goods, I need a replacement ASAP too. So as you think of your own transformation, think of the consumer. How do they fit into your DNA as a company? And not at the boardroom level or corporate level, but at your facility level too. How do I touch the consumer experience across every single function? If your operations aren't built around the consumer, well, odds are you're either in a non-consumer facing business or frankly, you are probably doing something wrong. You have to consider the entire experience every step of the way. And if you're not doing it and you want to, well, reach out. It will help you to solve that problem. So next time you're wondering, who do I actually compete with? Well, you're competing with Amazon. Those consumer expectations have been shaped and reshaped over the last 10 to 15 years. So those are the 10 shifts that we see in 2026 for logistics. If you want to see what a winning culture looks like, click this link here and take a look at how Coca-Cola delivers a winning customer experience every single day. And they do it across 2 billion drinks across 200 countries, day in and day out. I look forward to seeing you there.